I've been trying to understand for a while why people are hesitant to get the vaccine. I don't think the vaccine is dangerous, not that dangerous. I think it's effective. Why wouldn't they do it? I think that there are people who have a conscientious problem. That's not exactly the right word, is it? They're conscientious objectors. That doesn't make sense. That's making the fight against COVID a metaphor for war. I'm not going to go with that. Um, but there are people who don't want it simply because they don't want to give the government that much power to monitor them and tell them what to do. And in the age of the surveillance capability that they have, it's totally sensible to not want them to know or know anything about you, to be able to spy on you, to any of that. Totally understand that. Um, but I thought of another attack on it that might be a little more subtle, I guess. People will give up their freedoms for to protect their society and themselves, but only to a point, right? So if a government wants to reserve this right to really crack down on what people do, to tell them to wear masks and stay home, say for example, like they are right now, it would really help if they didn't have a history of being authoritarian in so many other ways. So I think that while I don't agree with the people who won't get vaccinated, I can see why they're afraid of the Liberal Party. I mean, my whole thing here is about listing the ways in which they've behaved in an authoritarian manner, right? Violated independence of the judiciary, the right to a fair trial, freedom of expression, prorogue parliament. They don't answer questions. They think that they're above answering questions, etc. There's been so many things. So with that history of them having done that, it's a little more understandable that people won't get vaccinated. It's not excusable to me, but so I think that this is related because big government is more and more in line with big corporations, big tech especially, and they've all gone for this woke culture stuff. And the government does it because they think that they can use it to get elected, and then once elected, they can be more dictatorial. Why do companies do it? They're afraid of the criticism. They're afraid that if they don't have diversity department, and they aren't hiring some certain number of this and that, and if they don't have a public relations policy where they come out and articulate their wokeness to the world, then they'll get attacked by a certain demographic. That's one reason. And it allows them to detract from real issues. So if you're spending all of your time making sure that you've got the right number of men and women, the right balance in your corporation, then that diverts attention away from wages, the environmental damage that they might be doing, wealth disparity in general in society, and working conditions. Wokeism originated with communism. Communism was concerned with workers. Wokeism is concerned with identity groups. And so if they're talking all the time about how much they're doing for Black Lives Matter, for example, and it's harder for anybody, especially in this woke universe, to criticize them for anything else. Okay, but the third more sinister one is that because criticizing Western civilization curries favor with the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party is openly antagonistic to Western ideology. A lot of the companies, like, say, Bloomberg, for example, or Walt Disney, or a lot of those companies, they have to actually do business in China to survive. We're not just dependent on them manufactured goods. A lot of our biggest industries are dependent on that market. So if you want access, if you're Walt Disney or the NBA, the sports teams are the most obvious example. If you want to do business in the NBA in China, then you better not be criticizing the Chinese Communist Party. And the Chinese Communist Party doesn't mind at all seeing Westerners kneel to a terrorist organization. I imagine that they find that hilarious. I would imagine part of the reason that the NBA puts up with its players getting on its knees for a terrorist organization is because it makes things a little more easy in China. You need a permit for this, a permit for that. So the thing is that all of this is now, in a way, so obvious to people who've been really paying attention to it, which is probably almost everybody. But I still find it phenomenal. Okay, Hunter Biden has been caught with, I think, a third laptop that he's lost. Okay, what we know for sure is that he's on tape with a prostitute. And he's discussing with the prostitute the fact that he thinks that some Russian ladies stole his laptop, which he was using to make pornography. So Hunter Biden's idea, and I forgive a person who does anything in the throes of a serious cocaine addiction. The person's absolutely crazy, the amount of cocaine that he did. But it's so berserk because the mainstream media was one of the things that they said we couldn't talk about. Like, it was really, like, just, you can't talk about it prior to the election. What a scumbag Hunter Biden is. Can't talk about the lab leak hypothesis. You can't talk about the election fraud, and you can't talk about Hunter Biden. So anyway, now it's come out, and he's complaining to the 33rd prostitute in 2 weeks that the two prostitutes from Russia previously had stolen his laptop, and he was afraid that they were going to use the pornography that he was making to make money for himself would be used by the Russians, and they wouldn't pay him his cut. You gotta admire the guy. That's really as demented a thing for the son of a presidential candidate that time. Well, this new tape has come out recently, but yeah, what an absolute nut. And so I'm gonna go through and just talk about another good thing that Trump did was he dropped a bomb on the Syrian government as soon as they used chemical weapons. Obama didn't do that. And so chemical weapons are a big deal with the international community. You can drop a bomb on people's heads and burn them up, but you can't use chemical weapons, which is okay for me. But nobody did anything about it when Syria started using them, and Trump laid a log on them, I think, within a very short period of time. He's happy to do that. It was huge. It was really a huge bomb. Another thing that he did is that he caught a high-level government official in Iran that was responsible for conducting a lot of terrorism against the Western world, probably in cooperation with Russia and China. And he got the guy, it's like having the defense minister in Canada, say. He's an evil person. And, France came along and shot the government official instead of the army. That is such an interesting tactic, because would government leaders be planning wars and invasions of that kind of thing if they were really afraid that it was going to be them that somebody targeted? Themselves personally, not their army, not some community center and whatever. We're going to kill the leaders. Trump did that. Trump is an authoritarian personality. He poo-pooed the COVID thing at the beginning, but by the end they had the vaccine in the time that he said they would have it. I bet that had something to do with him lowering regulations. Pulling out of Afghanistan right now is a mistake. And how is it that you've got the United Nations witnessing an absolute horror show? I think that the Taliban has said that they get 4 girls each. So the Taliban is going around and they're collecting women to serve as sex slaves to the Taliban. They get 4 each. And you've got the United Nations that's as useless as, useless as balls on a cow. I was saving that for Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau is as useless as balls on a milk cow. Balls on a dairy cow. So is the United Nations. They can't stop that. They're not even going to send forces. What are they for? Okay. Oh, yeah. Catherine McKenna losing, I think, 20,000 projects. The money went out, and they don't know where 20,000 projects are. That's with the Auditor General report. Oh, the Auditor General report said that Theresa Tam, when she said that the risk to Canada was low early in the COVID thing, she was saying that the risk to Canada was low based on the amount of COVID that was in the country at the time. And she wasn't considering as part of the possible risk the number of people that were flying into Canada from different places in the world, especially China. That's absolutely unacceptable. Derek Sloan asked her, okay, who are you working for? And that was a huge drama. Oh my God, Theresa Tam, our little hero. Who is she working for? Well, she was literally working for the Canadian government and literally working for the World Health Organization, collecting a salary. And so that question was had a simple answer: both. Who funds the World Health Organization? Who do you think? They get all their funding from the Chinese Communist Party, but they got enough. My favorite human being right now is Barry Weiss. Berriwies. Awesome. Awesome person. Oh.